It's the banking space that's dominating headlines, and we want to take the discussion forward. Joining in on the show right now, we have Sandeep Parekh. He's founder of FinSec Law Advisors. Afternoon, Sandeep. Let's start off with Axis Bank, with Shikha Sharma's term being cut short and the request for the reappointment term being revised. I just want to get in a broad sense as to what your outlook is in a situation such as this for a bank of such repute. Of course, the new successor is going to be fairly key to what the long-term story for the bank is going to be. But how are you looking at this overall development as of now?
Hi. So I see it as micromanagement by RBI. I think they have so many so many things to do, including the SEBI's push towards more disclosures, which they opposed in August. They have issues with recognition of NPAs, with how to handle fraud in large banks, including the issue with the other bank. So ignoring all of that, I think they're getting into corporate governance and management and performance of CEOs. I think they should do their core job first and then look at second guessing the decision of who the CEO of a bank should be. So I think unless there's some fraud or some mischief involved, I think they should have let the shareholders and the board decide who the CEO is going to be. So that's my two bits.
Hi Sandeep, this is Nayantara joining in from the New Delhi studio. While you're talking about the RBI and maybe it's micromanagement, let's not forget the press conference we saw last week, the first press conference since the Punjab National Bank fraud, whatever's happening at ICICI, its take on Axis Bank, and yet not a word from the governor on that. Did you feel that perhaps it was only looking at inflation management, prediction on inflation, and has not done as much as is possible on the corporate governance front? While you may disagree with its views on Shikha Sharma, supposing nothing had happened, questions would have been raised that why is the RBI, the regulator, sitting quiet when the NPAs are swelling, when Axis name is being associated, whether it's with a WhatsApp leak, whatnot, etc. So, what do you make of all of that and the fact that it's still not said anything on the conflict of interest allegations at ICICI?
Yes, so exactly, Nanda. My whole point is that don't conflate actual fraud, whether there is fraud or not, I don't know. But in ICICI, we're looking at very, very serious allegations of fraud, conflict of interest, versus performance in Axis. I think they're very, very different. They're basically opposite ends of a spectrum. In fact, I don't even see it as a matter of corporate governance. It's a matter of performance, really. All banks, every single bank in India has issues of NPAs which have suddenly surfaced. And these have not surfaced suddenly because they happened in the last 6 months. They surfaced because regulators and banks have been suppressing the correct disclosures for the last 7-8 years. So I think we need to focus on the design, and RBI needs to kind of focus on the other aspect as well, besides interest rate management, which is acting as a banking regulator. And I think that is where it is left wanting. And unless you have basic hygiene in place, conflict management, proper technology to prevent PNB kind of scams, I don't think you have, the way forward. And I think the most important thing which SEBI tried to do in August, RBI opposed it, which is SEBI said, let's bring in new disclosure standards. Let's bring in transparency in the banking sector. But RBI, in fact, opposed that. So we are, the whole problem of kicking the can down the road of recognition of NPAs and transparency in the banking sector is not being reformed. So unless we kind of consider the mother question, I think all these other questions become less important.
Sandeep, very quickly, before I let you go, I think you seem to be on the same side as the government as well when it said that, is the RBI lapsing in supervisory role, is it being vigilant, etc. But just the very fact that you've got eyes on corporate governance on ICICI, what did you make of the fact, and I went through the entire website to BSE yesterday, that there was no notice that was provided on the fact that a government nominee on the board had been changed, and also that two members didn't attend the last board meeting, which gave full support to Chanda Kochar. I'm talking about the LIC chairman who's on the board of ICICI, as well as the government nominee. And yet you have a board resolution or a board notice coming out that they're actually supporting Chanda Kochar.
Yeah. So I mean, I think these are the real big design issues, which is basic hygiene, transparency, disclosure, governance standards. I'm not saying corporate governance as defined by tick box approach, but unless we get transparency, disclosure, and governance standards right, I think the other issues with respect to catching fraud, recognizing NPS in time, all these will never be achieved. So I'm not seeing even the first step being taken in that direction. So unless we unless we're looking at the right design questions, I think we'll continue to have more frauds. We'll continue to have more issues with which are similar to what we've seen in the past few months.
Sandeep, thanks so much for telling us about your perspective as far as what do you make of these recent developments of the banking space.